The rich boy couldn't see, until a poor girl touched his eyes and everything changed. Julian Sterling stumbled again on the steps of the main staircase, knocking over a crystal vase that shattered into 1,000 pieces on the marble floor. The noise echoed through the hall packed with elegant guests, bringing all conversations to an instant halt. For 3 months, the 12-year-old boy had lived like this, groping along the walls of his own home, bumping into expensive furniture and causing accidents that left his father increasingly irritated. That's when a barefoot girl, in simple, worn-out clothes, ran to him and extended her small hand toward his face. Without hesitation, she delicately touched the bandage covering the boy's eyes, whispering words only he could hear. "You're not really blind, are you?" murmured Maya, her sweet voice contrasting with the chaos around them. "It's just fear of what you'll see." Julian felt something strange happen the moment the girl's calloused fingers met his skin. A faint light began to pierce the darkness that had tormented him for months, as if someone had lit a candle in a dark room. "Father!" shouted the boy, his voice trembling with emotion. "Father, I can see a light!" Arthur Sterling, a powerful businessman known for his coldness in dealings, stopped mid-conversation with his associates to look in his son's direction. His normally controlled face showed an expression of shock upon seeing the boy reacting to the presence of the poor girl. "What is this child doing here?" thundered Arthur, advancing toward the two. "Where are the security guards?" Maya's mother, Clara, came running from the kitchen, her hands still wet from washing dishes. Her white apron was stained, and she was visibly trembling before her employer. "I'm sorry, Mr. Arthur. Maya ran out of the kitchen. I didn't see her leave. Please don't fire me. I need this job." But Julian held firmly onto Maya's hand, his eyes still bandaged, but his face turned exactly toward her, as if he could see her perfectly. "Don't take her away, Father. She helped me see." The boy's voice came out stronger than it had been in the last few months. The guests at the charity gala watched the scene in absolute silence. Elegant women whispered behind their glasses of sparkling wine, while men in suits adjusted their ties, uncomfortable with the unusual situation. "This is ridiculous," muttered Arthur through his teeth. "Clara, take your daughter to the kitchen immediately. And you, Julian, come with me. We need to talk." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. But when Clara tried to pull Maya by the hand, something extraordinary happened. Julian cried out in pain and brought his hands to his head, as if a terrible migraine had instantly taken hold. "It hurts," he whimpered. "Everything went dark again." Maya broke free from her mother and returned to the boy's side, placing her small hands on his shoulders with a naturalness that impressed everyone present. "Calm down, Julian. Breathe slowly. I'm here." And as if by magic, the boy's pain-contorted face relaxed. He took a deep breath and for the first time in 3 months smiled. Dr. Thomas Miller, the Sterling family physician, was among the guests and observed the scene with professional interest. He discreetly approached, adjusting his prescription glasses. "Mr. Arthur, may I speak with you in private?" The two men stepped a few meters away, but Maya, with her sharp hearing from growing up listening to adult conversations through door cracks, managed to catch fragments of the talk. Psychosomatic condition, emotional trauma. Her presence seems to be causing a positive response. Julian, even without seeing completely, perceived every word. His precocious intelligence, developed through months of forced darkness, allowed him to understand more than the adults imagined. "Maya," he whispered, making sure only she could hear. "They're going to try to separate us." "I know," she replied, her voice carrying a wisdom that didn't match her 9 years. "But it won't work. Do you know why?" The boy shook his head. "Because you're not really blind. And I'm not just any poor girl. We have a connection they don't understand yet." Maya's words echoed in Julian's mind with a force he couldn't explain. It was as if she knew something that all the expensive doctors, all the renowned specialists, all the consultations at private clinics hadn't discovered. Arthur returned from his conversation with the doctor visibly disturbed. His hands, always steady during million-dollar negotiations, trembled slightly as he adjusted his tie. "Clara," he called, his voice more controlled than usual, I need you and your daughter to stay at the mansion tonight. Tomorrow we'll talk about the situation." The woman nodded quickly, not fully understanding what was happening, but grateful not to be fired on the spot. The guests began to disperse gradually, conversations returning to the usual topics of business and social gossip, but many cast curious glances toward the two children, who remained side by side as if they were old friends. "Come, Julian," said Arthur, his voice sounding more tired than authoritative. "Let's go to your room." For the first time in months, Julian didn't need to feel his way along the walls or be guided by his father. With Maya by his side, he walked with a confidence that surprised everyone. He couldn't see perfectly, but he could make out shapes, shadows, and movement. "And how do you know where things are?" asked Maya as they climbed the marble staircase. "I can't explain it. It's like I can feel where you are, and it gives me a coordinate, like you're a lighthouse." The comparison touched the girl's heart in a way she hadn't expected. No one had ever described her as something luminous before. In her small, dark home in the inner city neighborhoods, she had always felt invisible. In Julian's room, decorated with expensive furniture and imported toys he hadn't used in months, Arthur sat heavily in the leather armchair. "Dr. Thomas told me some complicated things," he began, running his hands through his graying hair. "It seems your problem isn't physical, son." Julian, sitting on the bed with Maya beside him, slowly removed the bandage from his eyes. His brown eyes, which had been hidden for so long, blinked several times before they could focus. "I know, Dad," he said, his voice surprisingly mature. "I always knew." "What do you mean by that?" The boy hesitated, looking at Maya, who encouraged him with a smile. "I stopped seeing the day you fired Mr. Harrison's family." Arthur felt as if he'd been punched in the stomach. Mr. Harrison had been the family gardener for 15 years. He had a wife and 3 small children. Arthur had let him go along with 20 other staff to cut costs during a temporary financial crisis. "Julian, I saw you crying at the gate, Dad. I saw Mr. Harrison begging to keep his job, talking about his kids. I saw Mrs. Harrison hugging the children, not knowing how they'd pay the rent." The boy's words came out in an emotional stream, as if they had been dammed up for months. "And the next day when I woke up, everything was black. I thought it would pass, but it didn't. Every time I tried to open my eyes, I saw those people crying again." Maya held Julian's hand, instinctively understanding the pain he carried. "That's why you stopped seeing," she murmured. "Because you didn't want to see more people suffering." Arthur Sterling fell silent for long minutes, processing the revelation. In his calculating businessman's mind, he had always justified his difficult decisions as business necessities. He had never considered the emotional impact on his own son. "And why can you see a little now?" he asked, his voice softer than usual. Julian Sterling looked at Maya, and even with his vision still blurry, he could make out her delicate smile. "Because she doesn't judge me. She doesn't want anything from me except to be friends. When she touched my eyes, I felt I could trust someone again." The simplicity of the explanation dismantled the emotional defenses Arthur had built over years of business competitiveness. He rose from the armchair and approached the bed, but stopped halfway, unsure how to proceed. May I sit there with you?" It was Maya who answered, her humble upbringing contrasting with the formality of the mansion. "Of course, Mr. Arthur. It's your home." When the man sat on the edge of the bed, Julian automatically moved away a little, a conditioned reflex after months of tension between father and son. But Maya, with her natural intuition, took both their hands and joined them. "You're both afraid," she observed, her childish voice contrasting with the wisdom of her words. "Julian is afraid of seeing bad things, and you're afraid of showing you're not strong all the time." The girl's perception struck both men like lightning. Arthur felt tears he hadn't shed since elementary school threaten his eyes. "How can a 9-year-old understand things that I—" "Because I've suffered too," Maya gently interrupted. "When my father left, I couldn't speak for a while. My mother took me to a doctor who said it was from sadness, but one day I found a hurt kitten on the street, and when I took care of it I started talking again." "And what's the connection?" asked Julian, genuinely curious. When we suffer a lot, sometimes our body stops doing some things to protect us. But when we find someone who needs us or who truly cares for us, the body remembers how good it is to live. The girl's simple words contained a truth that decades of formal education and business experience had not taught Arthur. He looked at his son, really looked perhaps for the first time in years. Julian wasn't just the heir to the family business. He was a sensitive, intelligent and empathetic boy who had been hurt by the coldness of the adult world. And Maya wasn't just the daughter of a maid. She was a wise child who, despite her own difficulties, could see and heal the pain of others. "Maya," said Arthur, his voice choked, "would you like to have dinner with us tomorrow? At the dining room table?" The girl's eyes widened in surprise. Clara had always instructed her to eat in the kitchen, away from the employers. "Really? Really? I think I have a lot to learn from both of you." That night, for the first time in 3 months, Julian slept without the blindfold over his eyes. He dreamed of soft colors and gentle voices, very different from the nightmares that had haunted him since the onset of his condition. The next morning, Clara woke early as always, but found an unusual scene in the kitchen. Maya was sitting at the small staff table, drawing on a crumpled piece of paper, while Julian was beside her, watching each stroke intently. "Good morning, Mom," said Maya cheerfully. "Look, Julian can see my drawings." Indeed, although his vision was still limited, the boy could distinguish the basic shapes his friend was creating. They were simple drawings of houses, trees, and smiling people, but to him they represented proof that his recovery was real. "Good morning, Mrs. Clara," greeted Julian politely. "Maya draws very well." Clara was visibly uncomfortable with the informality of the situation. In her 20 years working in wealthy family homes, she had never witnessed such closeness between social classes. "Maya, you should be helping me with Mr. Arthur's breakfast." "I already did, Mom. I took it to him on the tray, as always." "Alone?" "Julian showed me the way. He knows the house like the back of his hand." The irony of the expression did not go unnoticed by anyone. Julian laughed for the first time in months, a sound that echoed through the kitchen like music. Arthur appeared in the kitchen doorway still in his robe, a sight that embarrassed Clara. Employers did not usually appear in the kitchen in their sleepwear. "Good morning, everyone," he said, his voice sounding different, more relaxed. "Did you sleep well?" "Yes, Dad. I dreamed in colors." The simplicity of the answer touched Arthur deeply. It had been so long since he had paid attention to his son's dreams, or to his own. "And you, Maya?" "I dreamed I lived in a house with a garden," she replied without embarrassment, "with colorful flowers and a swing in the tree." The girl's childlike honesty about her simple desires made Arthur reflect on his own complex ambitions. When was the last time he had wanted something as pure as flowers and a swing? "Clara," he said, sitting down at the kitchen table, to the woman's discreet horror, "I need to talk to you about some changes. Did I do something wrong, sir?" "On the contrary, you've raised an extraordinary daughter, and I would like to offer her some opportunities." Maya stopped drawing and looked intently at the adult, her child's intuition sensing the seriousness of the moment. "What kind of opportunities?" "Education, private lessons, maybe a good school." Clara was speechless. In her wildest dreams, she had never imagined such a possibility for her daughter. "Mr. Arthur, I can't afford—" "I'm not asking you to pay. I'm offering. Your daughter helped my son in a way that very expensive doctors couldn't. It's the least I can do." Julian held Maya's hand under the table, sharing her joy without needing words. "But there's one condition," Arthur continued. Clara's heart raced. There was always a condition. "You two will move into the guest room here in the mansion. Maya needs to stay close to Julian during his treatment, and I need to learn how to be a better father." The last admission came out with difficulty, but it was said with total sincerity. Clara couldn't hold back her tears. After years of financial struggle, of sleepless nights worrying about her daughter's future, of silent humiliations in temporary jobs, finally a door was opening. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes, Mom," exclaimed Maya, jumping from her chair. "Please." Julian also stood up, his vision improving with every hour he spent with his friend nearby. "Please, Mrs. Clara, I need Maya, and I think she needs me too." The woman looked at the two expectant faces, one rich child and one poor, united by a connection she didn't fully understand, but recognized as genuine. "All right," she whispered. "We'll stay." Maya's shout of joy echoed through the entire mansion, a sound of pure happiness that had not been heard within those cold walls for a long time. In the weeks that followed, the dynamic of the Sterling house changed completely. Julian gradually regained his sight, not only physically but emotionally. He began to see beauty where before he only perceived coldness, in the garden that Mr. Harrison had tended with such care, in the flowers that bloomed despite no one watering them properly, in the elegant architecture of the house he had always considered a prison. Maya, in turn, flourished in an environment where her natural intelligence was nurtured and valued. Arthur hired private tutors who were impressed by the girl's quick learning. She absorbed knowledge like a sponge, making connections that surprised even the most experienced educators. "She has a gift for mathematics," commented the math tutor, Mr. Alfred, during a conversation with Arthur, "and an intuitive understanding of complex problems that is rare at any age." "And what about Julian?" "The boy is transforming. Maya's presence not only helped with his vision, but unlocked a creativity that was repressed. He's writing fascinating stories about friendship and overcoming challenges." Arthur smiled, a habit he was slowly regaining. His children, because that's how he had begun to think of them both, were healing not only each other but also him. However, not everything was rosy in the new family configuration. The arrival of Maya and Clara as permanent residents generated malicious comments among the neighbors in the local elite. Phone calls laden with false interest arrived daily. "Arthur, darling," said Mrs. Montgomery, wife of a business competitor, during one such call, "I heard you adopted a girl. How do you say it? From the inner city neighborhoods." "I haven't adopted anyone, Montgomery. I am merely providing an education for an intelligent child." "Oh, how noble of you. But don't you think it's dangerous to mix social classes like that? What if she influences Julian poorly?" Arthur felt irritation rise, but controlled himself. Before answering, he looked out the office window and saw Julian and Maya in the garden, planting seeds in a flower bed she had asked to create. "On the contrary, Montgomery, she is influencing my son very well, and me too." "But Arthur—" "Excuse me, Montgomery, I have more important things to do." He hung up the phone and went down to join the children in the garden. It was something he had never done before, interrupting work to play. But he had discovered these moments were more valuable than any business meeting. "What are you planting?" "Sunflowers," answered Maya, her small hands covered in dirt. "My grandma always said the sunflower is the flower of hope, because it always looks at the sun even when the day is cloudy." Julian, kneeling beside his friend, looked intently at the seeds they placed in the earth. "I can see the colors of your hands," he said, amazed. "Before I only saw black, now I see the brown of the dirt, the green of the leaves, and the yellow of the sunflowers when they grow," Maya completed. Arthur knelt too, dirtying for the first time in decades his expensive suit for gardening. "Can I help?" The two children welcomed him with wide smiles, and for the first time in years he felt truly included in his own son's life. As they planted, Maya told stories her grandmother had taught her about plants and nature. Julian, with his remarkable memory, absorbed every detail, creating in his mind a garden far more colorful than he could physically see. "Grandma Rose said that plants know when we like them," Maya explained. "That's why the garden at my old house always had flowers, even though it was small and didn't get much sun." "Is your grandmother still alive?" Arthur asked gently. Maya's smile faded slightly. "No, sir. She passed when I was 7, but she left me with a lot of teachings." Julian instinctively held his friend's hand, recognizing the pain of loss, even without having experienced it himself. "My mother isn't here anymore either," he said softly. "Sometimes I pretend she's watching me grow up." It was the first time Julian had mentioned his mother since she had passed from cancer 2 years before. Arthur felt his heart tighten, realizing his son had carried this pain alone all this time. "They must be proud of both of you," he said, his voice choked. "One for raising such a wise girl, the other for having such a courageous son." The three people there planting seeds in the garden formed, in that moment, something stronger than a traditional family. They formed a support network based on mutual understanding and genuine love. Clara watched from the kitchen window, still adjusting to the new reality. Part of her feared it was all a dream, that one day she would wake up in her small, cramped house back to the daily struggle for survival. "Mrs. Clara," called Alfred, the family driver who had become her confidant in the transition. "Are you worried about something? I'm afraid it won't last, you know. Too much good in the life of poor folks always seems to end quickly." Alfred, a man of 50, who had worked for the Sterlings for decades, smiled understandingly. "Look, I've known Mr. Arthur for a long time. He can be difficult sometimes, but when he makes a decision from the heart, he doesn't go back on it. And for the first time in years, I see him truly happy." "You think so?" "I'm sure. You don't see it, but he stops to listen to the children's laughter from his office, and pauses everything he's doing just to pay attention. Just yesterday, he cancelled an important meeting because Maya had asked for help with math." Alfred's words brought a little peace to Clara's apprehensive heart. But she still hadn't faced the greatest challenge that was approaching. The following week, an unexpected visitor arrived. Mrs. Eleanor Sterling, Arthur's mother and Julian's grandmother. An elegant and rigid 70-year-old lady who hadn't seen her grandson in 6 months due to disagreements with her son. "Arthur," she said, entering the living room with the upright posture she had maintained since youth. "I need to understand this bizarre situation that's been reported to me." Arthur, who was reviewing financial reports while listening to the children's laughter from the garden, sighed deeply. "Hello, Mother. What bizarre situation?" "Don't play dumb. Palmyra Montgomery called me saying you're raising a maid's daughter as if she were your own, and that my grandson is involved with a girl from a lower class." His mother's prejudiced language irritated Arthur more than he expected. "First, Mother, I'm not raising anyone as my daughter. I'm providing educational opportunities for an intelligent child. Second, Julian is not involved with anyone. They are friends. And third, social class does not define character." "Arthur Julian Sterling," the lady's voice rose a tone, "have you completely lost your mind? This girl will use you. She'll take advantage of the situation, and when she grows up, she'll bring problems to the whole family." The harsh words echoed through the house, reaching the garden where the children were playing. Maya, accustomed to being judged for her background, felt her chest tighten. Julian immediately noticed the change in his friend's mood. "What's wrong?" "Your grandmother is here, and she doesn't like me." "How do you know? You haven't even met her." Maya had the kind of wisdom that comes from the experience of being constantly rejected because of poverty. "I know," by the way she spoke. "Rich people always talk like that when they don't want poor people around." Julian was indignant. In his 12 years of sheltered life, he had never confronted class prejudice so directly. "Come with me. I'll introduce you to my grandmother." "Julian, no. Trust me." The two entered the house holding hands, with Julian guiding Maya with the confidence of someone who knew every room. His vision, although still not perfect, had improved drastically in recent weeks. In the living room, Mrs. Eleanor continued her heated discussion with Arthur. "You're going to ruin this boy's future over a whim. Julian needs peers from the same social class, schools suited to his level." "Grandma Eleanor," Julian's voice interrupted the argument. The lady turned and was shocked to see her grandson walking normally, without the blindfold over his eyes, without groping along the walls. "Julian, you can see." "Yes, Grandma, and I want to introduce who helped me." He pulled Maya forward, and the girl, despite her nervousness, maintained the dignified posture Clara had taught her. "This is my friend Maya. It's because of her that I can see again." Mrs. Eleanor examined the girl from head to toe, noting the simple but clean clothes, the well-kept hair despite the homemade cut, the respectful but not submissive posture. "Pleasure to meet you, Mrs. Eleanor," said Maya, giving a small curtsy. "Julian talks about you a lot." The girl's impeccable manners took the lady by surprise. She had expected to find a rude, opportunistic child. "Oh, yes. The pleasure is mine." Julian, sensing the tension in the air, decided to break the ice in his own way. "Grandma, Maya knows many stories from her grandmother. Stories about plants, about how to care for people when they're sad. She's the one who taught me that sometimes we stop seeing because we're afraid of what we'll see. Her grandson's words left Mrs. Eleanor disarmed. As much as she tried to hold on to her prejudices, it was impossible to deny that something extraordinary had happened to Julian. "And how exactly did you help my grandson?" she asked, addressing Maya directly for the first time. The girl took a deep breath before answering, remembering her mother's advice about always telling the truth with kindness. "I recognized his kind of sadness, Mrs. Eleanor. When my father left, I also went through a time when I couldn't do certain things. The difference is I stopped talking, and Julian stopped seeing. But we understood each other." "And why do you think you understood each other?" "Because we both know what it's like to be afraid of being abandoned by someone we love." The answer, given with childlike simplicity but loaded with deep perception, hit Mrs. Eleanor like a slap. In her social rigidity, she had never considered that her own distance from the family might have emotionally impacted her grandson. Arthur watched the scene in silence, impressed by Maya's maturity in handling difficult situations. "Grandma," continued Julian, seizing his grandmother's moment of surprise, "Maya is going to be a doctor when she grows up. She wants to help children like she helped me." "A doctor?" Mrs. Eleanor couldn't hide her skepticism. "Yes, ma'am," Maya replied with conviction. "I've already learned a lot from the teachers Mr. Arthur brought, and I want to study to help people who can't even afford expensive doctors." The girl's honesty about her origins and aspirations touched something deep in the lady's heart. She remembered her own youth, when she had dreamed of being a teacher before marrying and taking on the social responsibilities of a wealthy family. "Maya," said Mrs. Eleanor, her voice softer, You could show me this garden you planted with my grandson." The invitation surprised everyone. Maya looked at Julian, who smiled encouragingly. "Of course, Mrs. Eleanor, it would be an honor." The four of them headed to the garden, where the first sunflower sprouts were beginning to appear. Maya explained with enthusiasm each plant, each care technique she had learned from her grandmother, the symbolism of each chosen flower. "And why sunflowers?" asked Mrs. Eleanor, genuinely curious. "Because my Grandma Rose used to say a sunflower is like true friendship. It always seeks the light, even on difficult days." The metaphor touched the lady deeply, who was beginning to understand that there was much more depth to that girl than her social background suggested. "Grandma," said Julian, noticing the change in his grandmother's mood, "would you like to stay for dinner with us? Maya taught the cook to make a dessert her grandmother used to make." Mrs. Eleanor hesitated. Dining with the family of employees broke every social rule she had followed for decades. "I don't know if it's appropriate." "Please," asked Maya, her sincerity disarming any resistance. "You could tell family stories for Julian. He loves stories, and I bet you have many." The simple request, made without ulterior motives, melted Mrs. Eleanor's defenses. When was the last time someone had shown genuine interest in her memories? "All right," she said, surprising even herself. "But just for tonight." That night's dinner was unlike any meal ever served in the Sterling mansion. The formal dining table accommodated an unusual mix: the businessman Arthur, the maid Clara, the high society lady Eleanor, and the two children who had built a bridge between seemingly incompatible worlds. Clara, initially tense from being seated at the table with people so far above her social class, gradually relaxed thanks to the natural conversation that unfolded. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said respectfully, "Maya told me you have many family stories. She loves stories." "Ah, yes." The lady hesitated, unaccustomed to being asked by someone from a lower class. "I have a few." "Tell the one about the great-grandparents, Grandma," requested Julian excitedly, "the one you told when I was little." And so Mrs. Eleanor began to narrate the adventures of the Sterling family ancestors, stories of Irish immigrants who arrived in the United States with only courage and determination. Maya listened, fascinated, asking intelligent questions that showed her ability to understand historical and social complexities. "And how did they manage to prosper being foreigners?" asked the girl. "With hard work, honesty, and help from kind people who gave them opportunities," replied Mrs. Eleanor, unaware of the irony in her own words. Arthur and Clara exchanged meaningful glances, both catching the subliminal lesson of the story. "Just like what's happening with me and my mom," Maya observed innocently. The comparison left Mrs. Eleanor speechless for a few seconds. The girl was right. The current situation was a mirror of the Sterling family's own origins. "Yes, I suppose so," admitted the lady, her voice laden with reflection. After dinner, while the children played in the garden under Alfred's supervision, the three adults talked in the living room. "Arthur," said Mrs. Eleanor, her posture less rigid than usual, "perhaps I have been hasty in my judgments." "Mother." "The girl is exceptional, intelligent, polite, empathetic. And my grandson, I haven't seen him this happy since before the mysterious illness." Clara listened in silence, still processing the fact that she was part of a family conversation of the elite. "But," continued Mrs. Eleanor, "I have practical concerns. People will talk. Society can be cruel." "Let them talk," said Arthur with determination. "For the first time in years, my son is happy and healthy. That is worth more than any social opinion." "And you, Clara?" asked Mrs. Eleanor, addressing Maya's mother directly. "How do you feel about this situation?" The question caught Clara off guard. Rarely did someone from the elite care about her opinion. I'm grateful every day, Mrs. Eleanor. My daughter has opportunities I never dreamed of for her, but I am also sometimes afraid." "Afraid of what?" "That she forgets where she came from, that she loses the humility I've tried to teach her." Arthur leaned forward, interested in Clara's perspective. "And how do we make sure that doesn't happen?" "Keeping her connected to reality, Mr. Arthur. Not letting her think she deserves everything without effort, and teaching that helping others is always more important than accumulating things." Clara's wise words impressed Mrs. Eleanor, who was beginning to understand that intelligence and wisdom were not the privilege of the upper class. "Clara is right," the lady agreed. "Perhaps we can find ways to keep the children connected with different social realities." "How so, Mother?" "Volunteer work, visits to underprivileged communities, experiences that teach the value of what they have and the responsibility to help those who have less." The suggestion surprised Arthur, coming from a mother who had always prioritized social appearances above all else. "Have you really changed your mind about the situation?" Mrs. Eleanor looked out the window, where she could see Julian and Maya tending to the sunflowers in the moonlight. "I've changed my mind about many things today, son, especially about what really matters in life." That night, after Mrs. Eleanor retired to the guest room, a spontaneous decision to stay a few more days, Arthur remained on the balcony, lost in thought, watching the stars. Julian appeared in his pajamas, quietly approaching his father. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm great, son. Better than I've been in a long time." "Is it because of Maya?" Arthur pondered the question carefully. "It's because of both of you. Because of everything I've learned watching your friendship." "What did you learn?" "That sometimes the most important people in our lives arrive in ways we don't expect, and that having money means nothing if we don't have people who truly care about us." Julian smiled, his face illuminated by the soft light from the balcony. "Maya said something similar yesterday." "What did she say?" "That true wealth is when you can share what you have with the people you love. Money, time, affection, dreams, everything." The girl's words, repeated by his son, touched Arthur deeply. In his 45 years of life, he had never heard such a precise definition of true wealth. "She is very wise for a 9-year-old girl. It's because she's been through a lot of bad things, but she never got angry at the world. Her mother taught her that suffering can leave you bitter or wise, and they chose to be wise." His son's insight into the family that was now part of their lives made Arthur reflect on his own choices. How many times had he allowed business difficulties to leave him bitter instead of wise? "Julian." "Yes, Dad." "Thank you for introducing me to Maya. She changed our lives for the better." "No need to thank me. True friends always bring other good people into our lives." The boy hugged his father and went back to his room, leaving Arthur alone with his thoughts and a feeling of peace he hadn't felt in years. In the following days, Mrs. Eleanor surprised everyone by integrating naturally into the new family dynamic. She began supervising part of the children's education, contributing with her vast general knowledge and life experience. "Maya," she said during an impromptu history lesson, "do you know why it's important to know the past? So we don't repeat other people's mistakes." Partially correct, but also to understand that all families, rich or poor, have stories of struggle and overcoming. The difference lies in the opportunities each one finds along the way. The lesson contained a wisdom that transcended formal education, teaching the children about empathy and social understanding. Julian, whose vision was now almost completely recovered, absorbed not only the academic content, but also the life lessons that emerged from these conversations. "Grandma," he asked one afternoon, "you said our family came from far away. Why did they come to the United States?" "They were looking for a better life, opportunities that didn't exist in Ireland, like Maya's family." The comparison left Mrs. Eleanor thoughtful. "How so, dear?" "Her mother also came from far away, from the countryside, looking for work in the big city to give her daughter a better life." The analogy made by her grandson revealed a mature perception of social and historical patterns. Mrs. Eleanor realized the children were learning to look beyond superficial differences. "You're right, Julian. The dreams and struggles are similar, regardless of the era or social class." Maya, who was listening to the conversation while doing math exercises, looked up. "Mrs. Eleanor, do you think one day I'll be able to help other people like you're helping me?" "I'm sure, dear. In fact, you already are helping. You've transformed our family in a way we never imagined possible." The woman's words brought tears to the girl's eyes. For the first time in her life, she felt truly valued for who she was, not just tolerated out of pity or charity. Clara, who was organizing papers at the desk in the office where she now also worked as an administrative assistant, a promotion suggested by Mrs. Eleanor, watched the scene with infinite gratitude. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. The Sterling family's transformation did not go unnoticed in the local community. Comments ranged from genuine admiration to veiled criticism, but Arthur had learned to value domestic harmony more than outside opinions. One day, during a business meeting, his partner Franklin made a comment that caught him off guard. "Arthur, your employees are commenting on changes in your leadership style. They say you've been more human lately. Is that a problem?" "On the contrary, productivity has increased, the organizational climate has improved, and we have less staff turnover." "What happened?" Arthur smiled, thinking of the lessons he'd learned by observing the friendship between Julian and Maya. "I learned that leading with compassion isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of intelligence." "How so?" "Happy people work better. Employees who feel valued are more loyal, and a company that cares for its employees has a better reputation in the market." Franklin nodded, interested in his partner's renewed business philosophy. "And where did this wisdom come from?" "From a 9-year-old girl who taught me that true wealth multiplies when it's shared." The answer left his partner curious, but Arthur didn't elaborate. Some lessons were too personal to be explained in professional contexts. That afternoon, he arrived home eager to participate in the daily ritual that had been established. Story time in the garden, where the children would talk about what they learned during the day. "Dad!" Julian ran to meet him. "Maya discovered something amazing in science class." "What was it?" Maya approached, her eyes shining with enthusiasm. "I learned about photosynthesis. It's when plants turn sunlight into food. It's like they're magical, but it's science." The girl's excitement about scientific discoveries warmed Arthur's heart. He saw in her a future exceptional doctor, someone who would combine technical knowledge with genuine compassion. "And did you apply this knowledge to anything practical?" "Yes. I understood why our sunflowers are growing so well. They're in the right spot to get morning sun and afternoon shade." Julian added proudly. "And she said friendship is like photosynthesis too. We transform affection into energy to grow." The analogy made by the children was as beautiful as it was accurate. Arthur was moved by the poetic depth of children so young. "You're budding philosophers," he remarked, sitting down on the grass beside them. "What's a philosopher?" asked Maya. "People who think about life and find beautiful explanations for complex things. So can everyone be a philosopher? Of course, especially people who question, observe, and feel things deeply." The children felt proud to receive such a classification. For them, it was another sign that their opinions and perceptions had value. Mrs. Eleanor appeared on the porch, holding an envelope. "Arthur, an important letter has arrived." He stood up to receive the correspondence, but Julian and Maya continued their scientific discoveries, now examining ants carrying pieces of leaf. "Look how they work together," observed Julian. "It's because they know alone they can't carry such a heavy load," replied Maya. "Just like us. Together, we are stronger." The simplicity of the observation contained a fundamental truth about cooperation and friendship. Arthur, reading the letter, listened to the children's conversation and smiled. The correspondence was from a prestigious private school, offering spots for both children. It was exactly the kind of opportunity he had wished for Julian, and now he could extend it to Maya as well. "Children," he called, "I have some interesting news." They both ran to him, curious. "You've been accepted into a very good school. You'll be able to study together, with specialized teachers and classmates your own age." Julian was excited, but Maya showed a concern that surprised the adults. "Mr. Arthur, this school, does it have poor children too?" The question revealed a social maturity impressive for her age. "Why do you want to know that, dear?" "Because if it's only rich people, I'll feel different again. And if it's only poor people, Julian will feel different. We like places where everyone can be just the way they are." The girl's wisdom about social inclusion left Arthur both proud and reflective. "I'll look into that. I want you both to feel comfortable and happy at the school." "And if it's not the right place?" asked Julian. "Then we look for another place, or we create a new place. What's important is that you get the best education possible, but without losing what makes you special." The children smiled, satisfied with the answer. For them, the most important thing was to stay together and maintain their unique friendship. Clara, who had overheard the conversation from the kitchen, approached timidly. "Mr. Arthur, may I give an opinion?" "Of course, Clara. Your opinion is always important." Perhaps it would be good for them to visit the school first, talk to other students, meet the teachers. That way they can decide if it's the right place for them. The practical suggestion from Maya's mother showed the good sense Arthur had learned to value. "Excellent idea. Let's schedule a visit for next week." In the days leading up to the school visit, the children prepared in a touching way. Julian helped Maya choose appropriate clothes, while she reassured him about possible social anxieties. "What if the other boys don't like me?" she asked, a rare vulnerability in her normally confident personality. "Impossible," replied Julian with absolute certainty. "You're the coolest person I know. If they don't like you, it's because they aren't smart enough to deserve you as a friend." The boy's loyalty touched Maya deeply, reinforcing the bonds of friendship that had become stronger than many family relationships. "And what if they don't like you because of me? Then they aren't the kind of people I want to be friends with anyway." The emotional maturity of both children was a direct result of the experiences they had shared. They had learned that true friendship involves unconditional acceptance and mutual support. On the morning of the school visit, the whole family was nervous. Arthur Sterling reviewed the necessary documents 3 times. Mrs. Eleanor chose clothes that were elegant but not ostentatious, and Clara guided Maya on proper behavior. "Remember, sweetheart, be yourself but be respectful. Ask questions if you have doubts, but don't be intrusive." "I know, Mom. And if it doesn't work out, it's okay. We'll still find the right place." The naturalness with which Maya faced the situation impressed everyone. She had learned not to place all her hopes on a single opportunity. St. Jude's Preparatory was a traditional institution with a large campus and impressive infrastructure. Historic buildings blended with modern laboratories, creating an environment that breathed tradition and innovation. The pedagogical director, Professor Margaret, received the family with professional kindness. "Mr. Sterling, Mrs. Eleanor, it's a pleasure to have you, and these must be the children we spoke about." Julian greeted politely, while Maya gave a small bow that made a good impression on the educator. "Nice to meet you." Shall we take a tour of the school so you can see our facilities? During the visit, the children observed everything attentively. Spacious classrooms, a gigantic library, equipped laboratories, sports courts, gardens lovingly cared for. "And the students?" asked Maya as they passed an empty courtyard due to the schedule. "They're in class now, dear, but if you'd like, you can sit in on a class as visitors." The children looked at each other and agreed enthusiastically. The chosen class was literature, with students of the same age group. Ms. Higgins was explaining symbolism in poetry when they entered. "We have special visitors today," she announced, "Julian and Maya, who may become our new classmates." Some students looked curious, others indifferent, but none showed hostility. It was a good sign. "We're discussing how poets use elements of nature to express feelings. Can anyone give an example?" A girl with curly hair raised her hand. "When the poet compares tears to rain to show sadness." "Excellent, Chloe. Anyone else?" To everyone's surprise, Maya timidly raised her hand. "May I speak?" "Of course, dear." "My grandma always said that a sunflower represents hope because it always looks at the sun, even when the day is cloudy. I think that's symbolism too." The teacher smiled, impressed by the depth of the observation. "Perfect, Maya. You have a very good intuitive understanding of poetic language." Some students murmured approval, and Julian felt proud of his friend. She was doing well in a completely new environment. "And you, Julian? Any observations about symbolism?" The boy thought quickly, remembering the stories he had heard at home. "I think light and darkness appear a lot in poems. Like, when someone is going through problems, poets talk about darkness. And when things get better, they talk about light returning." "Very good. You both have a natural poetic sensibility." The class continued with lively participation from the visiting children. Other students began asking questions, creating an atmosphere of genuine exchange. "Where are you from?" asked a boy named Ethan. "I live in a big mansion," answered Julian without arrogance. "But before I had trouble seeing, Maya helped me." "And I lived in a small house in the inner city neighborhoods," said Maya naturally. "Now I live in Julian's house because our families sort of came together by accident." The children's honesty about their different backgrounds impressed their classmates. There was no visible prejudice, only healthy curiosity. "How did you meet?" asked Chloe. Julian and Maya looked at each other, smiling at the memory. "She touched my eyes on a day I was very sad," he explained, "and somehow it helped me see again." "Really? That's so cool!" exclaimed a girl. "It's just like in the movies." "It wasn't quite like that," laughed Maya. "It was more complicated, but we became best friends in the process." The natural way they told their story captivated the class. When the bell rang, several students approached to continue the conversation. "Are you going to study here?" asked Ethan hopefully. "We haven't decided yet," replied Julian, "but we like you guys." "We like the school too," added Maya. "It seems like a place where we can learn a lot." After the visit, the family gathered in the car to discuss their impressions. "So," asked Arthur, "what did you think?" "I liked the kids," said Julian promptly. "They were nice to us." "The teacher was very smart," added Maya. "And the library is huge. You could read a new book every day for years." Mrs. Eleanor, who had observed everything attentively, gave her opinion. "The school has a good academic reputation, and the students seem well-mannered. I saw no signs of prejudice or bullying." "And you, Clara?" asked Arthur, valuing the mother's perspective. "I thought they treated my daughter with respect. That's the most important thing to me." The children exchanged glances, and Maya spoke up. "Mr. Arthur, we want to study there, but on one condition." "What is it?" "If one day we don't feel good there, or if they separate us, or if someone is really mean, can we change schools?" The children's concern about keeping their bond touched all the adults deeply. "Of course," replied Arthur without hesitation. "You will always have the option to change if you're not happy." "Then we want to give it a try," said Julian, speaking for both. The decision was made, and 2 weeks later, Julian and Maya began their journey at St. Jude's Preparatory. The first days were a natural adjustment, with small challenges and big discoveries. Maya quickly excelled in the exact sciences, while Julian revealed an exceptional talent for literature and the arts. Their academic differences complemented each other perfectly, creating a study partnership envied by their classmates. "How do you manage to be so different but get along so well?" asked Chloe during recess. "It's easy," replied Maya. "I teach him math. He teaches me how to write beautiful stories. And we always celebrate when the other manages something difficult," added Julian. The children's philosophy of friendship began to positively influence the whole class. Competition gave way to collaboration. Rivalries were replaced by study partnerships. The teacher, Margaret, commented to the parents during a meeting, "Julian and Maya have brought a very healthy dynamic to the class. They teach by example that differences can be strengths instead of obstacles." At home, the children daily recounted their school adventures to the gathered family. "Today I helped Ethan with math," reported Maya. "He was having trouble with fractions, but I explained it using pizza and he got it really fast." "And I helped Chloe write an essay about friendship," said Julian. "She wrote about how we met and it turned out beautiful." Arthur smiled, seeing his children, because that's how he thought of both, developing not just intellectually, but also as generous and empathetic human beings. Clara, who now actively participated in school activities as a member of the Parent Association, felt fulfilled in a way she never imagined possible. "Mrs. Eleanor," she said one afternoon, while organizing books in the mansion's personal library, "sometimes I'm afraid I'll wake up and find out all this was a dream." "Why, dear?" "Because it's too much happiness for someone like me. My daughter studying at a good school, living in a beautiful house, having opportunities I never had." Mrs. Eleanor stopped what she was doing and looked directly at Clara. "Clara, do you know what my biggest mistake as a mother was?" The question took the woman by surprise. "No, Mrs. Eleanor." "Thinking that merit was measured by money or social position. When I met Maya, I discovered that the most valuable education a child can receive is unconditional love and solid values, things you gave your daughter even with few resources." You really believe that?" "I'm certain. Maya is wise, generous, and brave because you raised her that way. What we're offering now are just tools, the character she already had when she arrived here." The woman's words brought tears to Clara's eyes, not of sadness, but of profound gratitude for being seen and valued so genuinely. "And I can assure you of one thing," continued Mrs. Eleanor. "This happiness is not a dream or luck. It's the consequence of right choices that we all made when we decided to be a real family." The conversation between the two women represented the consolidation of an unlikely but genuine friendship between people from seemingly opposite worlds. That evening, during the family dinner, a surprise awaited everyone. "Family," said Arthur, standing up with an envelope in his hand. "I have an important announcement." All attention turned to him. "I've decided to make some significant changes to our business." "What kind of changes, son?" asked Mrs. Eleanor. "I'm going to create a scholarship program for underprivileged children, and also a fund to support working families going through hardships." The children smiled broadly, instinctively understanding the importance of the decision. "Dad, does that mean other kids will have the same opportunities Maya had?" "Exactly, Julian. And we'll start by offering decent jobs to the parents so families can stay together." Maya got up from her chair and hugged Arthur tightly. "Thank you for being a good person," she whispered, her simple words touching the man's heart deeply. "Thank you for teaching me how to be a good person," he replied, returning the hug. Clara cried with emotion, seeing that the transformation of her life had generated a positive impact that would extend to many other families. "Mr. Arthur," she said, her voice choked, "are you sure this won't harm the business?" "I'm sure of the opposite, Clara. Companies that take care of people prosper in the long run. It's a smart investment in every sense." Mrs. Eleanor nodded approvingly, proud of her son's evolution. "And how will we choose the families to benefit?" "With your help," said Arthur, looking at the children. "I want Julian and Maya to be part of the process, learning early about social responsibility." The idea excited both children, who saw an opportunity to put into practice the lessons about empathy and generosity they had absorbed. "Can we visit the families?" asked Maya. "Get to know their stories?" Of course, but always accompanied by responsible adults. And can we help the kids with their studies too? Added Julian. Excellent idea. You can be mentors to other scholarship students. The Sterling family's social responsibility program began to take shape that very dinner, with valuable contributions from all members. In the following months, the initiative developed rapidly. The first family to benefit was chosen after careful evaluation. The Millers, who had lost their home due to the family father's medical problems. Mrs. Martha Miller, mother of 3 young children, had worked for years as a housekeeper, but had to stop to care for her sick husband. The financial situation deteriorated rapidly until they received an unexpected visit from the Sterling family. "Mrs. Martha," said Clara during the first visit, "we would like to offer an opportunity for work and housing." The woman, thin and weary from the daily struggle, couldn't hide her suspicion. "What kind of opportunity?" "A formal job at Mr. Arthur's company, a house for your family and scholarships for your children." "And what do you want in return?" Maya, who had insisted on joining the visit, answered with her characteristic honesty, "We don't want anything, Mrs. Martha. We just want to help because we know how hard it is when life gets complicated. You're too young to know about that, girl. I know because I've been through it. My mother and I have gone to sleep not knowing if there would be food the next day. But good people helped us, and now we want to help others." Maya's sincerity touched Mrs. Martha, who began to believe the offer was genuine. Julian, observing the interaction, added, "Mrs. Martha, your kids are the same age as me and Maya. We could be friends and study together." The prospect of her children having educational opportunities made the woman's eyes fill with tears. You're serious?" "We are," Arthur replied firmly. "But we want you to understand this isn't charity, it's a partnership. You will work, contribute, participate. We are a community that helps each other." The clarity of the proposal reassured Mrs. Martha, who took pride in her work and didn't want to be seen as an object of pity. "And my husband? He's still recovering." "He can work part-time when he's better," said Mrs. Eleanor. "We have flexible positions at the company." The Miller family accepted the offer, and 2 weeks later they moved into a comfortable house near the Sterling mansion. The children, 10-year-old Johnny, 9-year-old Mary, and 7-year-old Leo, quickly integrated into the social group that had formed around Julian and Maya. "Will they go to the same school as you?" Johnny asked during their first meeting. "If they want to," Julian replied, "but there are other good schools too. You can choose where you feel most comfortable." The possibility of choice, rather than an imposition, made all the difference for the Miller children, who felt their preferences were respected. Maya, with her natural leadership ability, organized group study sessions where the children helped each other with different subjects. "Math is like a puzzle," she explained to Mary, who struggled with numbers. "Each piece has its right place, and when you find it, everything becomes clearer." Leo, the youngest, grew especially attached to Julian, seeing in him the older brother he never had. "Julian, is it true you couldn't see before?" "It's true. For 3 months I couldn't see anything." "And how did you play?" "I didn't play. I was sad and scared all the time." "And did Maya cure you?" Julian smiled, remembering that first transformative meeting. "Maya taught me that sometimes we stop seeing because we're afraid of what we'll see. She helped me stop being afraid. And now you can see everything? Now I see more than before. Not just with my eyes, but with my heart too." Julian's precocious wisdom impressed even the adults, showing how his difficult experience had transformed into a deep understanding of emotions and relationships. Johnny, being the oldest of the new group, naturally assumed a protective role toward his younger siblings, a quality Julian and Maya encouraged and respected. "Johnny, you're a very caring brother," Maya observed. "That's a beautiful thing." "My mother always said the oldest brother has to look after the little ones." "Your mother is right. But here you can be children too, not just caregivers." Maya's perception of the premature responsibility Johnny carried showed her sensitivity to complex family issues. The two families, the Sterlings and the Millers, began developing joint traditions. Sunday dinners, movie nights in the garden, collaborative gardening projects. Mrs. Martha Miller, initially shy in the new environment, gradually blossomed. Her natural talent for organization made her a valuable employee at the company, while her experience as a mother brought important perspectives to family activities. "Mrs. Martha," Mrs. Eleanor said one afternoon, "do you have any dreams you set aside when life got hard?" The question took the woman by surprise. "Why do you want to know?" "Because it's never too late to pick up dreams again, and now you have the stability to think beyond immediate survival." Martha was thoughtful for a few minutes. "I always wanted to take a nursing course. I like taking care of people, and I think I'd be good at it." "Then let's arrange that. The company can pay for the course, and you can study in your free time." The possibility of fulfilling an old dream brought tears of gratitude to Mrs. Martha's eyes. "Mrs. Eleanor, why do you do all this for us?" "Because we've learned that happiness multiplied is sweeter than happiness kept just for ourselves." The woman's simple philosophy perfectly encapsulated the transformation the entire family had undergone. Months passed, and the community around the Sterling family continued to grow. 2 more families were integrated into the program, each with their own stories of struggle and potential. The children became examples of inclusion and friendship at their school, inspiring other students to value differences instead of fearing them. "Miss Higgins," said Chloe during a writing class, "can I write about how friendship can change people's lives?" "Of course, Chloe. What example will you use?" "The story of Julian and Maya. They taught me that being different isn't a problem, it's an opportunity." The positive influence of the 2 children had spread far beyond the family circle, touching classmates, teachers, and school staff. Julian, now with his vision fully recovered, developed a passion for photography, capturing special moments of the expanded family life. "Why do you like photographing so much?" asked Ethan during a school project. "Because for 3 months I couldn't see anything. Now I want to record all the beautiful things I can see." "And what's the most beautiful thing you've photographed?" Julian didn't hesitate. Maya's smile the day she won the first math prize at school, and the hug my father gave me when he said he was proud of me. Julian's unique perspective on beauty, formed by his experience of losing and recovering his sight, influenced his artistic choices in a touching way. Maya, in turn, discovered a natural vocation for teaching. She created a small tutoring program for younger children, combining patience, creativity, and academic knowledge. "Maya," said Teacher Margaret, "have you ever thought about being a teacher when you grow up?" "I have. But I still want to be a doctor too. Do you think I can be both?" "You can be a doctor who teaches other doctors, or a teacher who teaches medical science. There are many ways to combine callings." The possibility of uniting her passions excited Maya, who began planning a future where she could heal and educate simultaneously. During the school holidays, the families organized a trip to the Jersey Shore, where Clara had been born. It was the first time many of the children had seen the ocean. "It's gigantic," exclaimed Leo, running toward the waves. "And it makes a different noise," observed Mary, enchanted by the constant sound of the water. Julian photographed everything obsessively, wanting to capture every expression of wonder. "Julian," said Arthur, sitting down in the sand next to his son, "what are you thinking about?" "I'm thinking that a year ago I couldn't see any of this, and now I'm seeing it for the first time alongside people who are also seeing it for the first time." The poetic depth of the boy's observation touched Arthur deeply. "And how does that make you feel?" "Grateful. And complete. As if all the pieces of my life have finally clicked into the right place." Maya approached, her clothes wet from playing in the waves. "What are you guys talking about?" "About how lucky we are," replied Julian. "It's not just luck," she corrected, with her usual wisdom. "It's consequence. We chose to be good to each other, and good things happened because of that." Arthur smiled, impressed once again by the children's philosophical maturity. Clara joined the group, carrying shells she had collected with the other children. "Mr. Arthur," she said, sitting in the sand, "I wanted to thank you for bringing us here. It had been years since I'd been back to my homeland." "How does it feel to be back?" "Different. When I left here, I was running from poverty and lack of opportunity. Now I return as a visitor, with my daughter having a bright future ahead of her." "And what changed?" "I changed. I'm no longer ashamed of where I came from, because I learned that the place we're born doesn't define who we can become. Clara's words contained a fundamental truth about overcoming and self-esteem that resonated with everyone present. Mrs. Eleanor, who was watching the children playing in the waves, approached the group. "Arthur," she said, "do you remember when you brought Julian here for the first time? He was 5 years old. He cried because he was afraid of the waves. And now look at him." Julian was waist-deep in the water, helping Leo overcome his own fear of the waves with patience and encouragement. "He learned that helping others overcome fears also heals our own fears," observed Mrs. Eleanor. The transformation of her grandson into an empathetic and courageous boy filled the grandmother with pride and hope for the family's future. That night, staying in a simple but cozy inn, the families gathered for dinner on the porch overlooking the sea. "I'd like to make a toast," said Arthur, raising his glass of juice, "to the family we've built together, to the friendships that changed our lives, and to the future we'll create united." "Cheers!" everyone responded in chorus, children and adults united in gratitude and hope. Johnny, the boy who had arrived shy and distrustful months ago, stood up courageously. "Can I say something?" "Of course, Johnny. I wanted to thank you for saving my family. My mom hasn't cried from worry every night since we came to live near you." The boy's sincerity moved all the adults. "Johnny," said Julian, "you weren't saved by us. We saved each other. Friendship works like that." His friend's answer made Johnny smile broadly, finally understanding he was part of a true community of affection. Mary, inspired by her brother, also wanted to express herself. "Maya, you taught me that being smart isn't just knowing the right answer. It's knowing how to ask the right question, too." "And what's the most important question you learned to ask?" Maya asked curiously. "How can I help?" The answer deeply touched everyone present, showing how values of generosity were being naturally passed on among the children. Leo, the youngest, didn't want to be left out. "Julian, thank you for teaching me that being afraid is no shame. The shame is not trying to overcome the fear." The little boy's words perfectly summarized the journey of emotional growth they had all undergone. Clara and Mrs. Martha, sitting side by side, watched their children express gratitude and wisdom with maternal pride. "Martha," whispered Clara, "do you believe what our children have become? Sometimes it feels like a dream, but it's real and it's too beautiful." Mrs. Eleanor, overhearing the conversation, joined the two women. "Do you know the secret to all of this working out?" The two mothers shook their heads. "Neither of you lost your humility. Neither of you let comfort turn gratitude into arrogance. That made all the difference." The ladies' recognition of the importance of maintaining original values deeply touched the two hard-working mothers. Back in the city after the trip, family life resumed its enriching routine. The children returned to school full of stories to tell, strengthened by the bonds of friendship that continued to deepen. One day, during a civics class, teacher Ms. Higgins proposed a special project. "Let's create presentations on citizenship and social responsibility. Each group will choose a topic and present practical examples." Julian and Maya immediately decided to work together, choosing the theme, "How Small Actions Can Generate Big Changes." "Should we talk about our own experience?" asked Julian. "I think so. Our story might inspire other classmates to believe in friendships that go beyond differences." They spent weeks preparing a presentation that combined personal testimonies, photographs of their expanded family, and lessons on empathy and social inclusion. On the day of the presentation, the duo surprised teachers and classmates with a touching narrative about mutual transformation through genuine friendship. "It all started when I couldn't see anymore," shared Julian, his words capturing the audience's full attention. "It wasn't a physical problem, it was emotional. I had seen so much sadness that my brain decided to stop seeing." Maya continued the narrative. "When I met Julian, I recognized in him the same kind of sadness I had once felt. Sometimes when you suffer a lot, you stop doing things you've always done naturally. But the most important thing," said Julian, "was discovering that healing happens through genuine connection. When someone truly cares about you, your mind remembers how good it is to live. The profound simplicity of the message touched everyone present. Several classmates asked questions about how to apply these lessons in their own lives. "Do you think anyone can do what you did?" asked Ethan. "Of course," Maya replied without hesitation. "You don't need to be rich or special. You just need to truly care about other people." "And how do we know if we're truly caring?" asked Chloe. "When you feel happy seeing the other person happy, even if it brings no benefit to you," answered Julian. The simple but precise definition of selfless love even impressed the teacher. The presentation received the highest grade and was chosen to be presented to other classes in the school. Julian and Maya's message began to positively influence the entire school community. At home, the families continued to grow and evolve. Arthur had expanded his social programs, now benefiting nearly 50 families through dignified jobs, adequate housing, and quality education. "Dad," said Julian during a dinner, "can I suggest something for the program?" "Of course, son. Your ideas are always good. What if we created a space where the children who benefit could teach each other, like a mutual support school?" Maya got excited by the suggestion. "That's brilliant. Each child teaches what they know best and learns what they struggle with most." The children's idea was brilliant in its simplicity, creating an educational system based on cooperation instead of competition. "How would it work in practice?" asked Mrs. Eleanor, interested in the proposal. "Saturday mornings," explained Julian. "The kids get together and each one becomes a teacher of something. Whoever is good at math teaches math. Whoever is good at English teaches English. And whoever struggles gets personalized help from someone who already understands," added Maya. Arthur smiled, impressed by his children's pedagogical maturity. "Let's implement this idea. Can you coordinate the program?" "With help from the adults," said Julian responsibly. "We're still kids." "But you have more wisdom about friendship and teaching than many adults," observed Clara. The Learn by Teaching program began 3 weeks later in a spacious room at Arthur's company, specially adapted for educational activities. On the first Saturday, 16 children gathered, ages ranging from 7 to 12. The diversity of backgrounds and experiences created an impressive richness of perspectives. "Good morning, everyone," said Maya, naturally assuming the role of coordinator. "Today we're going to discover what each person knows best and what they want to learn." A shy girl named Sophie raised her hand. "I can draw well, but I can't understand math." "Perfect," replied Julian. "Johnny is great at math and wants to learn to draw better. You can help each other." The dynamic was quickly established, with pairs and small groups forming based on complementary skills. Maya taught fractions using pizza drawings, while Julian helped 3 boys write stories about their own experiences. "Why do you do this?" asked Charlie, a boy new to the program. "You could be playing instead of teaching us." "Teaching is our favorite way to play," Maya answered honestly. "When we help someone understand something, we get happy together." "And you don't get tired?" "Our bodies get tired sometimes," said Julian, "but our hearts never get tired." The answer touched Charlie, who had never met adults or children willing to help without expecting anything in return. The program's success spread quickly. Other companies in the region began contacting Arthur to implement similar initiatives. "Mr. Sterling," said the president of the local business association during a meeting, "your company has become an example of social responsibility. Many business owners want to learn from your experience." "I'm honored," replied Arthur, "but I must say the best ideas came from the children, not from me." "How so?" "My children, Julian and Maya, see solutions that we adults can't see because they don't have the prejudices or mental limitations we develop over time." The revelation deeply interested the association president. Would it be possible for them to present their ideas to other business owners? Arthur hesitated, worried about not overburdening the children with adult responsibilities. "I'll consult with them, but only if they want to and in a way appropriate for their age." That evening he talked with Julian and Maya about the proposal. "Would you like to tell other business owners how you developed the mutual aid programs?" The children looked at each other, considering the possibility. "Can we help more families if more business owners make similar programs?" asked Maya. "Yes, many more." "Then we want to," said Julian decisively. "But can it be in language kids understand? We don't know how to talk like business adults." "Of course, you'll speak the way you know how," That will be even better. The presentation was scheduled for the Chamber of Commerce auditorium with 50 local business owners in attendance. On the appointed day, Julian and Maya arrived dressed elegantly yet comfortably, carrying a photo album from the program and some essays written by the children they had helped. "Good afternoon," said Maya, her clear voice echoing through the auditorium via the microphone. "My name is Maya, and this is my best friend Julian. We're here to talk about how children can solve problems that adults find difficult." The simplicity of the introduction immediately captivated the audience of serious business people. Julian continued, 2 years ago I couldn't see, not because of a medical problem, but because I was too sad about things I saw in the world. Maya helped me see again by teaching me that not everyone is bad. And I learned from Julian that not all wealthy people are selfish, added Maya. Sometimes good people just don't know how to help properly. The children's honesty about their mutual prejudices drew warm laughter from the audience. "So we decided to bring good people from different places together so everyone can help each other," Julian continued. They spent 40 minutes telling specific stories of the families they had helped, showing photographs of children studying together and reading excerpts from essays about gratitude and hope. "The most important part," Maya concluded, "isn't giving people money. It's giving them the opportunity to be the best version of themselves." "And how do we know if we're doing it right?" asked a businessman from the audience. "When the people you help start helping other people too," Julian replied. "Real kindness that works always spreads." The answer prompted spontaneous applause from the entire audience. After the presentation, several business people approached, interested in creating partnerships or implementing similar programs. "Young lady," one businesswoman said to Maya, "how old are you?" 10, ma'am. "And you already understand social responsibility better than many adults. How did you learn that?" "By living. When you go through hardship, you learn what really matters. And when you receive real help, you learn how to help properly too." The wisdom born from real experience deeply impressed the businesswoman, who decided to implement a scholarship program at her own company. Back at school on Monday, Julian and Maya were received as minor celebrities by classmates who had seen news about their presentation on local television. "You were on TV," exclaimed Chloe. "That's so cool." "It was strange," admitted Julian, "but good if it helped more people." "Are you going to become famous?" asked Ethan. "We don't want to become famous," Maya replied. "We want the ideas to become famous. Famous people sometimes forget what's important." The children's maturity in handling public attention showed how deeply they had internalized solid values. Their teacher, Ms. Higgins, who was listening to the conversation, decided to seize the moment for a broader lesson. "Class, do you realize that Julian and Maya have become examples of how to use personal talents to benefit the community?" "How so, Ms. Higgins?" asked a student. "They discovered they were good at making friends and resolving conflicts. Instead of keeping those talents to themselves, they used them to help other people." "And do we all have talents we can use like that?" asked Chloe. "Everyone. Some are good at art, others at sports, others at math. The question is to figure out how to use our gifts to make the world a little better." The lesson inspired the class to reflect on their own abilities and how they could apply them generously. At home, family life continued to evolve organically. The children from the Learn by Teaching program became a natural extension of the family, regularly visiting the mansion to study, play, and participate in joint activities. "Arthur," said Mrs. Eleanor one evening, "do you realize we've turned this house into a small educational institution? And do you mind that?" "I do mind. I'm too proud to feel anything else." The transformation of the strict grandmother into a passionate educator represented one of the most beautiful changes in the entire family journey. Clara, who was now studying nursing on her free nights, brought home medical knowledge that enriched the family conversations. "Mom," said Maya, "do you like the course?" "I love it, dear. I finally understand scientifically why caring for people with affection aids in healing." "How so?" "When we treat someone with kindness, that person's body produces substances that strengthen the immune system. Literal affection helps with physical healing." The scientific explanation for something Maya had always known instinctively fascinated her. So, when I touched Julian's eyes that first day, it might have actually helped scientifically. Absolutely. Affectionate touch reduces stress and anxiety, which were causing his psychosomatic blindness. Julian, who was listening to the conversation, was impressed. You mean Maya really cured me? It wasn't just luck? It was intuitive knowledge, replied Clara. She instinctively knew how to help even without understanding the science behind it. The scientific validation of Maya's intuition further strengthened her determination to pursue a medical career. Mrs. Martha Miller, who had settled wonderfully into her new job, brought an interesting proposal during a family dinner. Mr. Arthur, Mrs. Eleanor, I'd like to suggest something. Please, Martha. What if we created a professional training program for the mothers of the children we help? Many want to work but lack qualifications. The idea was excellent, filling an important gap in the social program. What kind of training do you suggest? Basic courses in administration, computer skills, customer service, practical things that open up job opportunities. Julian and Maya exchanged glances, both seeing an opportunity to contribute. Mrs. Martha, said Maya, could we look after the younger children while their mothers study? And organize educational activities for them, added Julian. That way, everyone learns together. The children's suggestion turned a practical need into an opportunity for joint family growth. The training program began a month later, running on Saturdays in the same room where learning by teaching took place. While the mothers attended professional qualification classes, their children participated in educational activities supervised by Julian, Maya, and other young volunteers. Aunt Maya, called a little girl, why is our mum studying again? Because it's never too late to learn new things that can improve our life, Maya replied patiently. Your mum wants to have more job opportunities to take better care of you. And are you also studying to take better care of someone? The innocent question made Maya reflect on her own motivations. I'm studying so I can take care of many people when I grow up. I want to be a doctor and help sick people get better. Like you helped Uncle Julian see again? Like that, but with more knowledge to help better. The conversation with the little girl reinforced Maya's conviction about her medical vocation. Meanwhile, Julian developed a growing interest in education and psychology, fascinated by the emotional aspects of learning and human development. Dad, he said one night, I want to study to understand why some people manage to overcome difficult problems and others don't. That's psychology, son, a fascinating field. Do you think I'd be good at it? Arthur smiled, remembering his son's journey of self-discovery and emotional healing. I think you'd be excellent. You understand emotional pain because you've been through it, but you also understand healing because you chose to heal instead of becoming bitter. The father's validation strengthened Julian's interest in a career that combined psychological help with emotional education. One day, during a routine doctor's visit to monitor his visual recovery, Dr. Thomas made an interesting observation. Julian, your recovery has been extraordinary, not just because of the physical healing, but because of the emotional maturity you developed in the process. How so, Doctor? Many children who go through medical or psychological traumas become afraid to face difficult situations in the future. You developed exceptional courage and resilience. It was because of Maya and my family. They taught me that problems can be opportunities to grow. The boy's positive perspective on adversity impressed the doctor. And what do you intend to do with this wisdom? Help other kids who are going through situations similar to what I went through. How? I don't know exactly yet, but I want to show them that it's possible to become stronger after going through hard things. Julian's determination to turn his personal experience into a tool to help others showed exceptional maturity. Maya, present at the appointment, added, Doctor, Thomas, is it possible for two kids to work together to help other kids? How do you mean, dear? I want to be a doctor to heal people's bodies, and Julian wants to be a psychologist to heal their feelings. We could work together. The idea of a future professional partnership based on the solid friendship they had built delighted the doctor. That would be an extraordinary combination. A doctor and a psychologist working as a team can offer complete care for patients. The children smiled, already envisioning a future where they would continue to complement each other professionally. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like the video and especially to subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. The years passed, and the friendship between Julian and Maya continued to be the foundation of all the family and social transformations they promoted. At 15, both excelled academically and maintained a natural leadership in social responsibility projects. "Maya," said Julian during a walk in the garden where they had planted the first sunflowers, "do you remember how you felt the day we met? I felt like I had found someone who needed the same kind of help I needed. And you? I felt like finally someone understood my pain without judging, and that I could trust again." They stopped before the sunflowers, now tall and imposing, their golden flowers following the movement of the sun. "These sunflowers have become a symbol of our story," observed Maya. "How so?" "They always seek the light, even when the day is difficult, just like we did for each other." The metaphor was perfect, summarizing years of mutual growth and unconditional support. Arthur, watching the children from the office window, called Clara to share the moment. "Clara, look at them. They still talk about everything, don't they? I've never seen such a solid friendship. Have you ever thought about what would have happened if you hadn't accepted the job here that day?" Clara became thoughtful. "I'd rather not imagine, Mr. Arthur. Our life would be completely different, and not just ours, of all the families you've helped since. It's amazing how one meeting can change so many lives." "It wasn't just a meeting," Clara corrected gently. "It was the decision of everyone involved to choose to be good to one another." The woman's perspective on the power of moral choices touched Arthur deeply. Mrs. Eleanor, who joined the conversation, added, "The most beautiful thing is to see that the transformation didn't stop. Every family we helped started helping others too." It was true. The initial program had grown organically, creating a support network that benefited hundreds of families across multiple generations of recipients who became benefactors. That evening, during the traditional Sunday family dinner, a special surprise awaited everyone. Julian had prepared a photo album documenting 7 years of family history. "Family," he said, standing up solemnly. "I want to show you something." He opened the album to the first page, which contained a photo of him wearing the blindfold, sitting alone in his room. "This was my life before Maya arrived." The next page showed the first meeting, a blurry photo of him and Maya holding hands in the mansion's hall. And this was the moment everything began to change. The following pages documented every important milestone: the first sunflowers planted, the first families helped, the educational programs, the presentations to business leaders. "But the most important pictures are these," he said, reaching the final pages. The last photographs showed everyday moments, everyone eating dinner together, children studying in the living room, mothers taking vocational courses, grandparents telling stories, teenagers helping younger children. "These show we've become a real family, not by blood or marriage, but by choosing to love each other." The album passed from hand to hand, each person reliving precious emotions and memories. "Julian," said Mrs. Eleanor, visibly moved, "where did you learn to document our story so beautifully?" "I learned that important moments deserve to be preserved, and I learned that family is the most important thing there is." Maya, flipping through the album, stopped at a specific photo, her and Julian planting sunflowers with other children. "You know what impresses me most about this whole story?" "What?" everyone asked. "It's that it started with us helping each other and spread to so many people. Kindness really does multiply." "And it will keep multiplying," Julian added, "because all these children we've helped will grow up knowing how to help other people." The children's perception of the long-term impact of their actions showed a deep understanding of legacy and social transformation. Clara, looking at a photo of herself receiving her nursing diploma, said emotionally, "I never thought I'd graduate from anything, and look where I am now." "Mom," said Maya proudly, "you were always smart. You just needed an opportunity to show it. And now you take care of people at the hospital and still help with the program here at home," observed Julian. "You've become an example for other mothers." The children's recognition of their mother's achievements brought tears of gratitude to Clara's eyes. Mrs. Martha, present at the dinner with her family, was also moved to see her photo of her business administration graduation in the album. "You saved our family," she said for the 100th time. "Mrs. Martha," Arthur corrected gently. "Your family saved itself through its own effort. We just gave you the opportunity. But without opportunity, effort doesn't lead anywhere. And without effort, opportunity doesn't either," Maya replied. "That's why it worked. You found us at the right time, and everyone did their part." The girl's mature analysis of the necessary combination of opportunity and effort impressed all the adults present. Johnny, now 17, and preparing for engineering college entrance exams, also wanted to speak. "Sterling family," he said formally. "On behalf of all the families you've helped, I want to say thank you for teaching us that poverty doesn't define character and that wealth only has value when it's shared." The young man's mature words represented the intellectual and moral growth of an entire generation of children who had been helped. "Johnny," Mrs. Eleanor replied, "you taught us as much as we taught you, perhaps more." "How so, Mrs. Eleanor?" "You taught us that humility and gratitude are values rarer and more precious than money, and that true family is built with love, not social convention." The exchange of praise and acknowledgement between different generations created a moment of deep emotional connection. Arthur, observing his expanded family gathered around the table, stood up for a final pronouncement. "8 years ago, I was a bitter man, focused only on accumulating material wealth. My son was sick, my mother was distant, and I had no true friends." He paused, looking at each face around the table. "Today I have a large and happy family, prosperous businesses based on human values, and the certainty that our lives have a purpose greater than personal gain." "And how do you explain this transformation?" Mrs. Martha asked curiously. "2 children taught me that true wealth multiplies when it is shared, that real power comes from empowering others, and that success only has meaning when it lifts up the people we love alongside us." Julian and Maya exchanged a look, proud to have been catalysts for so much positive change. "Dad," said Julian, "do you know what plan Maya and I have for the future? I know you intend to work together in the medical and psychological field. More than that, we want to create an institution that combines medical care, psychological support, and social education for entire families." "How so?" Maya explained with enthusiasm. "A place where we treat not only physical or emotional illnesses, but help entire families develop. Doctors, psychologists, educators, and social workers all working together. A holistic approach to health and human development," Julian added. The children's vision for integrated healthcare was innovative and ambitious. "And when do you plan to start?" "After college," Maya replied. "But we already want to start studying and planning now." "You can count on our full support," Arthur said without hesitation. "And with our experience," added Mrs. Eleanor. "All these years working with families have taught us a lot about real needs." The prospect of continuing to work together in the future excited the whole family. Clara, now a nursing graduate working at the local hospital, offered her own contribution. "I can help you understand the practical side of medical care, and I know many families who would need the kind of help you want to offer." The possibility of the whole family contributing to the children's future project created a feeling of continuity and shared purpose. That night, after the guests had left, Julian, Maya, Arthur, and the grandmothers stayed on the porch watching the stars, a tradition they had developed over the years. "Dad," said Julian, "can I ask a personal question?" "Of course, son. Are you happy now?" Arthur considered the question carefully before answering. "I am happier than I ever imagined possible. And you?" "I am happy in a way I didn't even know existed," Maya replied. "It's a happiness that grows when you share it." "I am happy because I learned that having problems doesn't mean being unhappy," said Julian. "It means having an opportunity to grow." The children's definitions of happiness reflected the emotional maturity they had developed through their experiences. "And what are your dreams for 10 years from now?" asked Mrs. Eleanor. "That our medical institution is up and running, helping hundreds of families," Maya answered immediately. That the children we help today are helping other children, said Julian. May our family continue to grow with good people, they both added together. The children's dreams were consistent with the values that had guided their entire journey: generosity, mutual growth, and the expansion of love. And what about you, Grandma Eleanor, Dad? What are your dreams? Mrs. Eleanor smiled, her aristocratic posture relaxed by the family peace. My dream is to live long enough to see you fulfill your plans and to continue being proud of the family we've built. My dream, said Arthur, is to expand our social programs even further and to see other companies following our example on a national scale. The adults' dreams perfectly complemented the children's, creating a shared vision of the future. Clara, joining the group on the porch, added her own perspective. My dream is that my daughter never forgets where she came from, but never feels limited by where she started. And my dream, said Maya, hugging her mother, is to honor everything you taught me and use it to help other people. The connection between mother and daughter, strengthened by their joint journey of growth, deeply touched everyone present. When everyone had retired to sleep, Julian and Maya stayed on the porch a few minutes longer, as they had since they were little when they needed to talk about important things. Maya, said Julian, have you ever thought about what would have happened if you hadn't run to me that first day? I think about it sometimes. I think you would have been okay eventually because you're strong, and I would have found another way to help my mother. But we wouldn't have met. That's true, and everything else wouldn't have happened the same way. They were silent for a few minutes, contemplating the stars and the magnitude of the changes that a simple act of kindness had set in motion. Julian, Maya finally said, do you believe in destiny? I believe some people were made to meet and help each other, like us. I believe that too. But I think destiny only works when we choose to do the right things. How so? If you hadn't accepted me as a friend, or if I had given up when your family was suspicious, none of this would have worked out. Maya's observation about the importance of personal choices in fulfilling destiny was profoundly wise. So, destiny is more like an opportunity, and we decide whether to take it or not. Exactly. And we make the best of it. The children's philosophy on destiny and free will showed a sophisticated understanding of personal responsibility and life purpose. Maya? Yes? Thank you for saving me. Thank you for letting me save you. And for saving me too. How did I save you? By giving me a family, an education, and the chance to help others. You saved my future. Their mutual perception of salvation and gratitude perfectly concluded another day in the life of the extraordinary family they had built together. End of story. This was a fictional story created to touch our hearts. Now tell us what you thought. Leave in the comments your opinion on this transformative friendship between Julian and Maya. Do you believe small acts of kindness can generate such big changes? Share your experiences and don't forget to leave your like and subscribe to the channel for more moving stories.